Hello everyone, CodefForge here. Today we will continue our journey with the Angular material library. So we will play a little bit with the buttons, like this one over here, with modals and also inputs and toasts. We will start from the point where we have finished previous video, so let's code something. We will start with adding all the modules to our game library module. So I will paste all we need over here. And we will need mod button module for buttons, mod dialog module for the dialog we saw at the beginning, select module for the selects, forms module because we will use some validation on the form, and also for the same reason we'll use reactive forms module, and the last one is the snackbar module. Let's also paste imports at the top to get rid of the errors. We will also use input module in our form, but it was already here because we have used it in the previous video in the filter functionality. Now we can save it and run our application. Okay, our application is up and running, and as we can see, the plus button from the table disappeared because it was our target application. And now we have the fresh start, so let's go. In the first place, we'll add button to our table, which will be located in the top right of the table. So let's navigate to the shelf component HTML. And right under our div element with the class mat elevation, we want to add our button element. And we'll add to this button a directive from the Angular material, and it will be mat mini fab button, and we'll also add the class to it to add some additional styling, and it will be add button, let's say, and we'll choose the color and set it to primary, and also we'll add the event listener for the click event, and we want to call the method addGame, which we will implement soon. Okay, and in the button we want to display an icon, and let's say it will be mat icon, and it will be add icon. Okay, let's save it and check if our button will appear. Yes, it's here, but it is a little bit out of position, so let's take care of it. Let's go to the shelf component SCSS file, and over here we will add few rules. At the bottom of the file we will add rule for the add button class, and we will set position to absolute. You want to move button to the right, so we'll type right 0. And we will add some additional space by saying margin and setting it to 8 pixels. Okay, let's check out if it will fix our problem. And our button is in the top right of our table, so it's good. Okay, so right now we'll add a new component which will display our modal after clicking add button. First of all, we have to navigate to our modules, so we type cd source app, and our module is called game library, and we want to go to the components, and over here we want to generate our components, so we type ng generate component, and we will call it add game modal, and we hit enter. And after a few seconds it should appear. Yes, it's over here. Great. So let's navigate to the HTML file of our modal, get rid of this thing, and let's add h2 tag, and let's say it will be add new game. Also we'll add the material class, so it will be displayed correctly, and we will say mat h2. Okay, and let's save it. For now we will leave it like it is, and we'll go to the shelf component TS file over here, and at the bottom we will implement the method which we have added to the add button in the shelf component HTML file, and it is somewhere over here, right? So now we will implement this method to open actual model. So our method was called addGame, and right now to actually open the model we have to add one thing in the constructor, and this thing is dialog reference. So we will put it over here after this one, and we will type public dialog, which will be the type of mat dialog. Okay, and it is also imported from the Angular material dialog, as we can see. So now let's move to the bottom. Now we will create const variable, which will be called dialog ref, and it will store a reference to our modal, which we will open in a minute. And now to actually open this modal, we have to reference this dialog, which we have injected in our constructor, and now we can call on it the open method. Open method takes two arguments. First one is the type of the model we want to open, and it will be our addGame model component. And the second one is the option objects, and in the option objects we can set the width of our component and set it to 300 pixels. Okay. Oh, it will be comma, not semicolon. Also we need a semicolon over here, and we can format code and save it. Now we can test it by clicking add button, and as we can see our model is being displayed, but it looks a little bit weird, and this is because our add game module component is not set as the entry component in our module. To fix it, we have to navigate to game library module, and over here under the exports array we have to add entry components array, and in the entry components array we will put our add game module component, and let's format the code also, and let's save it. Okay, now if we click add button, our module is displayed correctly. Now we can start implementing our form inside modal. So to do it, we go to the addGame model component HTML, and over here right under our h2 tag we will create our form, and we don't need the action, and our form will be handling ng-submit event, which is the Angular event, and we want to assign to our form a method that is called addGame, which we will implement later. Our form will have one input field, one select, and two buttons. So let's start with the first input. So to create one, we will use mat form field, and we will add class to it that is called full width input. So our input field will take the entire width of our model, and we'll copy it because we want the same for our select. Inside our mat form field we want to create input tag, and we will add mat input directive to it from the Angular material. We'll also add form control to make some validation later on, and we will assign to it title control. Next one will be placeholder, and we will set it to title. Default value will be nothing, so we want to put empty string. Name of this control will be title, and at the end we will say that our input is required. Our next field will be select, but first we will add the label for it, so we type mat label, and inside it will be genre, because from the select we want to select the genre for our game. And right under this one we want to create mat select, and we'll also add form control to make some validation later on. So we type form control and we will assign to it genre control. Okay, and also we want to add name, and it will be of course genre, and it will be also required. Oh, required. Okay. Now we will populate our mat select using mat option tag. And inside this mat option tag, we will use ng4 to iterate over the genres collection, which we will pass to our model. So we type let genre of genres. So now we can assign our genre in each iteration to the value of each input, option. So we type genre, and inside we can use interpolation to display actual genre. At the bottom of our form, we will add div element with the class button wrapper, and inside our button wrapper we will have two buttons. First one will be cancel button, so we type button, and inside we want to say mat stroke button. This is the type of button from the Angular material, of course. We want to say that is the type of button, and also we want to set the color of accent to it. And to the click event of this button, we want to assign a method, which we will implement later. And it will be responsible for closing our modal. So we will call it close dialog. And as the text, we want to set cancel. Second button will be responsible for adding game to our list, and it will call ng-submit event. So like before, we type button, we'll close it, and we will use mat flat button this time. The type will be submit, so it will call ng-submit event, and we want to set the color to primary. And of course the text will be add. Okay, let's check our modal. So we have the input field, we have the genre select, which is empty right now. We have cancel button, which is not working because we didn't implement that close dialog method. And as we can see, it's quite different from the add button. That is because we use the mat stroked button for the cancel and mat flat button for the add. And add is also not working right now. Now let's move to the add game modal component SCSS file, and over here I will just paste some styles to make it look better. So as you can see, we are just adding some margins, we are removing some margins, we are setting width of each input to 100%, and in the button wrapper using flex we are moving our buttons to the right side and we are adding some space between them. So we have added few small adjustments, and now if we click it, it looks much better. Okay. Now let's move to the implementation of our add game modal component. In the first place, we will create some properties, and the first one will be the genres collection, and it will be the array of the type genre. And we'll initialize it to the empty array. Now we'll create two form controls, which we will use to validate our input and select. The first one will be title control, and it will be new form control. And in the constructor, we're passing empty string because it's empty. And the validators and we are setting it to required. And we'll do exactly the same for the genre controller. So we'll copy it and change the name. And over here we are missing import. So basically the genres collection will be used over here in our mat option element, and this one, and this title control and the genre control with the initial state of empty string and the validator required is used over here on this input. In a second we will also add the message which will be displayed if the fields are empty. Okay, so let's go back over here. We have genres property, but it is still empty. Let's initialize it in our constructor. So to do it, we say this genres. And now to assign actual value, we'll use object type and we'll call values method on it. And as the argument, we will pass genre. This genre type used in the values method is the enum that we have created in the previous video, and this values method from the object type will iterate over this collection, take all the values, not keys, and put it in our genres collection. Now we will inject dialog reference in our constructor, so we will be able to close the dialog. So we type public dialog ref, and it will be type of mat dialog ref, and it is generic type, so we have to pass type of our modal this way. So now we can use it to implement our close dialog method, which we have assigned to the click event on the cancel button. So we go over here and we want to type close dialog because this is the name of our method, which we have assigned in the HTML file. And now by calling this dialog ref, we can call close method and it will close our dialog. Let's save files and let's check if it will work. So we click add, we click cancel, and the dialog is closed. Great. Now we will implement add game method, which will be called on the ng submit event over here. So let's go under this one, and over here we will say add game. First of all, we will check if our controls are valid. So we say if, and we will reference to our title control, and we will check valid property. And we will also check second one, which is genre control, and we will check if it's valid. If condition is true, we will create game object and we will store it in the const variable. Let's say it will be called game to add. And now using constructor, no, the game service, we want the game. And since we don't have any unique number generator, we will just use date now to generate ID for our game. Next one will be title of our game, and we can access it through our title control dot value. And we'll do exactly the same for the genre control, and we will also access value property. And we are also missing game type, so we have to import it. And now we can return this object from our modal to the parent component by saying this dialog reference close, just like in the case of the closing the dialog, but this time we'll also pass the object, which is game to add. It will not work just yet because we have to implement some stuff in our parent component. But right now we'll go back to the HTML file and we will implement messages for our title control and genre control. Over here under the input tag we can use mat error tag, and in this mat error tag we can put our message. Let's say title is required, and required will be in the strong tag. We want to display this message only if there is an error on our input field. So we can use title control, and we can call method that is called has error and pass required string. So if there will be the error with the required property, we will display our mat error tag. We will do exactly the same for the mat select. We'll put it right under mat select, but in the mat form field. We'll change the control to the genre control, and we'll also change title over here to genre is required. Okay, let's save it. Let's check if it works. We click the add button. We are missing the title, and we have the message title is required. We click the genre. Now we can see we have the collection of the genres, but if we click somewhere else, we have the genre is required. And if we click cancel, our model is closed. Great. Now let's move to the shelf component, and over here we will implement adding game to our list. First of all, we will refactor this piece of code over here, and we will select it, refactor, and extract to the private method, and we will call it open add game model. Okay. Right under this method, we will call another method, which we'll implement in a second. So we will say this handle closing add game model, and we will pass dialog ref as the argument. And now we'll implement this method. So we say private, and we say handle, or let's copy it. It will be faster. And as the parameter, we will say dialog ref, which is type of mat dialog ref, and it is generic type as before. So we will say add game model component. Now we can use this dialog reference and listen for closing our model, and we can do it by calling after closed method and subscribing to it. We of course remember that if our form is valid, we are returning the game object, right? So we can do the callback function in the subscribe with our game object. So we create arrow function over here, a little bit of formatting. And now, before we will actually implement this callback function, we will inject in our constructor snackbar. So we say private snackbar, which is the type of mat snackbar, and it will allow us to display messages on the screen. So we auto import it, and we go back to our callback function. Over here, we will check if our game object is undefined. And if it is, that means someone canceled the form, and we want to say this snackbar, and we want to open the snackbar with the following message. It will be adding game cancelled and the exclamation mark. And as the second argument, we want to say close, to close the snackbar. And the last argument is the option object, and we can set the duration in the milliseconds. And let's say our snackbar will be displayed for 2 seconds. in case when someone filled the form and clicked add button, that means we want to add game to our list. So we'll call game service, which will have add game method, which takes game argument. We don't have implementation of this method just yet, but we'll take care of it. But right now, let's subscribe to this method. And if the subscription will be completed, we will return the add game object, and it will be added game, which is the type of game, and we will implement our callback function. Over here, we want to display the snack bar, but we want to change the message, and we want to use backticks to use the string interpolation, and we'll say game, and now the $, curly braces, and added game title, and again this one, and we want to say has been added. Oh, been added. Rest is the same. And now to actually update our table and the paginator of our table, we also have to call this games data source, and we have to call method update change subscription. So it would refresh our table. Let's format code and let's go to the game service to implement our add game method. So it's somewhere over here. Our method must be called add game, and it will take game object and will return observable of game. And inside, first of all, we want to push to our games collection our game object, and after this we want to return using rxjs of operator our game, not the game collection, but after short delay using pipe and saying delay 1 second, like this. Looks good. So let's save it, and also let's save the shelf component TS file. Okay, so let's do the final test. We click the add button, we click cancel, and we have adding game cancelled at the bottom. And now let's say we want to add the game. It will be Anthem, and let's say it will be RPG, and we click add, and game Anthem has been added, and we can see it's over here on the second position. Okay guys, this is all I have prepared. I hope you enjoyed this short series about the Angular material library. Remember about liking the video if you enjoy it, and if you want more, subscribe right now. See you next time.